Our story begins with a motley crew of claymation characters. First up, we have Bob, a giant jolly meatball with a penchant for trouble. Bob means well, but his clumsiness often leads to chaos. Next, there's Sheila, a sassy slice of pepperoni pizza with a fiery temper and a love for all things spicy. And let's not forget Phil, a paranoid pickle perpetually convinced the world is out to get him. These three unlikely friends are always up for an adventure, no matter how absurd or messy it might be. Whether it's a food fight of epic proportions, an eating competition that pushes the limits of their stomachs, or a seemingly innocent dip in the pool that turns into a gummy shark-infested free-for-all, these three are a recipe for laughter. So buckle up, folks, because things are about to get messy, hilarious, and just a little bit unhinged. This is the type of claymation chaos that leaves you wondering, how did they even animate that? But hey, that's half the fun, right? Get ready to laugh until your sides ache because these clay creations are about to unleash a level of absurdity that's both charming and downright hilarious. It all started innocently enough. Bob, Sheila, and Phil were enjoying a picnic lunch in the park. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and then, kaboom! It began with a stray grape fired across the picnic blanket, a mischievous glint in Sheila's eye. Bob, never one to back down from a challenge, retaliated with a dollop of potato salad, launching it with a mighty roar. And thus began the greatest food fight the world had ever seen. Mashed potatoes became projectiles, hot dog buns transformed into edible frisbees, and ketchup and mustard became the war paint of these doughy warriors. Phil, initially horrified by the sudden turn of events, found himself swept up in the chaos, wielding a baguette like a fencing sword. The park became a whirlwind of flying food. Squirrels scattered, birds took cover, and a lone park bench cowered in fear as a rogue hamburger narrowly missed its mark. Bob, covered head to toe in mustard and relish, let out a triumphant belly laugh, the sound echoing through the once peaceful park. This was shaping up to be a day these claymation comrades would never forget. Exhausted but exhilarated from their food fight escapade, our three friends stumbled upon a local diner hosting an all-you-can-eat buffet. It was a challenge tailor-made for their insatiable appetites. Bob, with his bottomless pit of a stomach, saw it as an opportunity to claim ultimate bragging rights. Sheila, never one to turn down a food-related contest, was ready to out-eat any challenger, even if it meant loosening her belt a notch, or three. The whistle blew, and the feeding frenzy commenced. Bob attacked the buffet with gusto, shoveling platefuls of spaghetti, mountains of mashed potatoes, and an entire roast chicken into his gaping maw. Sheila, employing a more tactical approach, focused on high-calorie desserts, her eyes gleaming with sugary determination. Phil, ever the skeptic, nibbled cautiously on a salad, convinced the whole thing was a recipe for disaster. As the minutes turned into an hour, the crowd watched in awe and slight horror as the food disappeared at an alarming rate. Bob, his belly now the size of a beach ball, let out a satisfied burp that could rival a sonic boom. Sheila, covered in a fine layer of powdered sugar, licked her fingers with a smug grin. Phil, having finished his salad, watched on with a mixture of amusement and bewilderment. Section 4. The Great Gummy Shark Escape Terror in the Kiddie Pool. After their gastronomic marathon, our heroes decided to cool off at a local water park. Bob, still feeling the effects of his buffet binge, opted for the lazy river, his body resembling a giant meatball bobbing along the artificial current. Sheila, always up for a thrill, beelined for the tallest, twistiest water slide, her laughter echoing through the park. Phil, ever cautious, chose the kiddie pool, figuring it was the safest option. Little did he know, his choice would lead to the most harrowing experience of the day. As Phil dipped his pickle toe into the water, he felt something brush against his leg. He dismissed it as a rogue pool noodle at first, but then he saw it. A gummy shark, its tiny teeth bared in a menacing grin. Panic surged through Phil. He tried to warn the other children, but they were too busy splashing and playing to notice the impending gummy shark invasion. Soon, The pool was teeming with the gelatinous predators, their tiny bodies wriggling with sinister intent. Phil, his worst fears realized, found himself at the center of a gummy shark feeding frenzy. Section 5, Post-Chaos Cleanup, a Sticky Situation. As the sun began to set on their day of epic adventures, Bob, Sheila, and Phil surveyed the scene around them. The park was in disarray, the diner was a disaster zone, and the kiddie pool resembled a scene from a low-budget horror film. They were covered in food, sweat, and in Phil's case, gummy shark residue. Cleaning up this mess was going to be a monumental task, but they were in it together, for better or for worse. Bob, with his surprising strength, started gathering the scattered food remnants, stuffing them into oversized trash bags. Sheila, using her quick wit and even quicker reflexes, tackled the sticky spills and greasy surfaces. Phil, still traumatized by his gummy shark encounter, cautiously cleaned the kiddie pool, making sure not a single gelatinous creature remained. It was a long, arduous process, but eventually, they restored a semblance of order to the chaos they had created. As they collapsed onto a park bench, exhausted but satisfied, they couldn't help but laugh. It had been a day filled with absurdity, mayhem, and a whole lot of laughs. Section 6. Lessons learned, not a chance. As the last rays of sunlight faded, casting long shadows across the park, Bob, Sheila, and Phil reflected on their day of epic misadventures. Had they learned anything from their chaotic escapades? Not a chance. They embraced the absurdity, the messiness, and the sheer joy of living life on their own terms, consequences be damned. They were a reminder that sometimes the best stories are the ones that make no sense, the ones that leave you shaking your head and chuckling at the same time. They were Claymation chaos personified, and they wouldn't have it any other way. Section 7. Stay tuned for more mayhem. The adventures continue. So there you have it, folks. A day in the life of Bob, Sheila, and Phil, a trio of Claymation characters who prove that even the most absurd situations can be hilarious. But this is just the beginning. Their adventures are far from over. Who knows what kind of trouble they'll find themselves in next? One thing's for sure, it's bound to be messy, hilarious, and utterly unpredictable. Stay tuned!